Hello and welcome to the Spirit Studios podcast. My name's Al. I'm a tutor here at Spirit, and today I am joined by Sarah.
Hello.
Hi. So Sarah is one of our students, your first year live audio engineering and music production.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And this is your first Spirit podcast. But it's not your first podcast.
It's not my first podcast. I have my own podcast. I have to say, I'm a really big fan of the Spirit Studios podcast. I've listened to every episode
It's
he's done.
come full circle.
Yeah, so I'm very grateful to be involved today. This is awesome.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. But yes, no, I do have my own podcast, so I'm used to the sound of my own voice, unfortunately, for everybody. Yeah.
What's the podcast that you do?
So I've been doing a podcast for a few years. It's called the Shout Louder Punk Podcast. To be honest, I started it just for fun. It was an excuse to sit down and talk to my mates who are in bands. But over the years, we've done quite a few things with it, and we've done some live episodes, and I've managed to get some bands I really admire on to chat to as well. So
Cool. You got to tell me the bands. Who have you had on?
Oh, well, I've had like the Menzingers, a Wilhelm Scream, some like kind of slightly bigger American punk bands that I've been looking up to for years. And you get to sit down with them for half an hour and like have a really deep, intense conversation.
Yeah.
How often do you ever get to do that with, people you love?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really good fun.
We were talking just before we started recording a bit about a recent podcast episode that you did that was kind of like a special one-off live episode. And it's so good. Could you tell us a bit about what happened at Handfest?
I absolutely can. So Handfest was an event in Leeds that I was working at recently. I was stage managing there. And on the Saturday of this quite big event, one of the bands on the main stage pulled out at the last minute, and the organizer said to me, "Sarah, is there any chance you could do something?" And I was like, all right. So I roped in two friends who one of them was in the headline band and one of them was in one of the other bands, and I roped them in and went, "Guys, we're going to do a live podcast on stage in about half an hour. Are you ready?" And they went, "Oh, what? Okay, yeah." The two bands have a bit of a rivalry, so we decided to riff on that, and we basically did like a 30-minute comedy set with zero planning in front of quite a big audience, and a few people told me it was their favourite set of the weekend. So
Above all the other music that was taken.
Absolutely. And there wasn't a moment of music in it. We went around all kinds of different corners. We really dived into the sort of comedy of it. We had people heckling us from the audience, which was an interesting editing feat. And we ended it with a thumb war.
Yes.
we got two of my friends. Yeah, they were on stage. One of them had stripped his shirt off halfway through, and they're on their knees on stage having a thumb battle in front of 400 people with me as well. I realised that we were recording, and I thought, oh my God, I need to commentate on what's happening here, because if not, the podcast listeners at home, they're going to have no idea what's going on. So I'm stood there on stage in front of 400 people commentating a thumb war. I'm wondering how my life has led to this moment.
I was going to say, where do you go from there now?
I mean, I've peaked. That's it. Yeah.
You've obviously then been working in and around music for a long time. What then led to you getting to a point where you thought, actually, I want to take this a bit further and actually go and study, audio engineering, live audio engineering, music production at Spirit? How did you get to that point?
So to be honest, it was quite a long process that led me into that point. But ultimately, it comes down to what I was doing when I was 17. Like, it was way before I'd done anything in the music scene or before I'd had any involvement in it at all.
Yeah.
When I was, I'm obsessed with music. It's the only thing I really care about. Like, every single second of my day is focused around music in some way. And when I was 15, 16, 17, I started really, really getting into it and really getting involved, going to all kinds of shows. And I started getting really into music tech as well. And I realised I've never had the urge to be on stage, but I love understanding the tech and the engineering side of it and everything that goes into it. And I just get really fired up about it. And when I was 17 and, I was doing my A-levels, I was living in quite a small rundown town that didn't really have any music venues, or, it had a couple, but they weren't really dedicated spaces. So in that environment, becoming a sound engineer didn't really seem like a possibility.
Right.
That wasn't a job that you could aspire to. I didn't know anyone who did that for a living. But I remember being 17 and being like, I want to be a sound engineer. Like, when I grow up, that's what I want to do. But life just didn't work out that way at the time. I had this major interest in music, but the world around me, the small town vibe, parents, teachers, all that kind of thing. Whilst everyone was really supportive, a lot of people wanted me to go off and do something more academic or, go into something more quote unquote serious, acting like this isn't a serious job when it absolutely is. But back then when I was 17, I didn't believe that I could go and do that. And I don't think there were many avenues or opportunities that I could take to do that. So instead I went off, I did other jobs. I've done all kinds of other things. I've always had music in there. I've had different jobs in different parts of the industry. Like say, I've sort of been a venue manager and things like that. But I'd never really had the opportunity to go and study it and make something of it like I am now.
Right.
And then a couple of years ago, I heard about Spirit. And I heard about a few other places. I checked out other places as well, but Spirit was the one I felt like intensely drawn to. Like I felt like this was a good place for me to be. And I was on the fence for so long. I remember talking to people about a year ago and going, I've had this idea that I might go and do a degree in audio engineering. And everyone going, that's a great idea, Sarah. And me going, no, I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure if it's the right thing for me to do. But yeah, I don't know, years of wanting to do it, but not feeling like I was good enough or not feeling like I could do it or feeling like there were barriers in the way. And then, yeah, I don't know, I just kind of took a bit of a dive at some point last year and went, you know what, I'm doing it. And genuinely, this is the best decision I've made like ever, I think. Like I love it here. I'm having such a good time.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's great to hear. What is it that drew you then to Spirit? You said you looked at a few places. What was it about Spirit that you thought, yeah, this is the one for me?
There were a few different things about it, to be honest. The people, I think, is a really big thing. I'd had the good fortune to meet a few of the people who worked here and get to chat to a few people, and just everyone seemed really happy. I got to come into one of the open days. That was definitely I made my decision to come to Spirit on the open day. I came in and went, oh my God, yeah, this is definitely the place for me. The thing that also sold it to me was the fact that it's a bit smaller and it's fully music focused. That's all that we do here, and they do it well, And I really wanted to be in an environment where I was going to be surrounded by musicians and other people who were just as excited as what I'm excited by, and just be in an environment full of like creative, music obsessed people, and it's so good.
That's the beauty of it, is everyone's here because they love music in some form.
Very much so, and you can feel it. Like every single class, we're all enthusiastically talking about what we're into, right? It's great.
Yeah, and like our classes now start at 9 a.m. and it's still enthusiastic, which is
we love your classes
impressive.
so much, Al, that we're all here on time, ready. Like we're here 20 to 9, ready to go, waiting for you to unlock the door so we can all. Like, how often are we in the corridor? Like ready,
it's
prepared,
so
right?
incredibly punctual. It's great. It's great because actually we do get a lot of stuff done.
It's true. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
I have to say actually that, and this is partly from yourself, but from my other tutors as well, is that the enthusiasm from the tutors really has brought me a lot. So for me, I'm more interested in live audio engineering, and the degree that I'm doing is kind of split 50-50 between the two. We've got half live and half studio. I spend a lot of my time in the studio with you, Al, which is fantastic. But genuinely, your enthusiasm has made me more interested in the studio side of things than I ever thought I was going to be.
that's awesome.
I felt that for me that was secondary when I started, and now like that's just as important to me.
What was it that drew you to the live aspect initially more?
I love gigs.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's literally it. I live at gigs, and I have done for years. I keep a diary of all the gigs that I go to.
Wow.
And I have done for years. I write everything down with like the date and the venue, the order of the bands that I saw them in, any notes if anything weird happened,
like a thumb war,
like a human pyramid, that kind of.
Okay.
Actually, that's pretty standard at some of the shows I go to. But yeah, sure, thumb war. But yeah, I write down all my gigs and then I sort of like tally them up at the end of the year and work out how many I've gone to, and
Great.
For years I've been going to 2, 3, 4 gigs a week. Like it's something I'm obsessed with. And the idea that I might actually be able to work in that environment, just so good. Like that's definitely what's drawn me to live. But genuinely, I've been really impressed with how some of the course has been designed as well, because whilst we do a studio module and we do a live module and then we have other bits supporting that as well, I've felt that quite often we're learning the same thing, like parallel. So what we talk about in a class on a Thursday in a studio session might be quite similar to what I talked about on Monday in the live session. The two work incredibly well together. It feels like it's been planned. We've got the Charlie Jones live venue in the building, right? And, you know, on a Monday morning, that's where I am. I'm in a music venue learning. It's great, you know. But I can book out that venue whenever I want to. I can go in there. I can bring a band in. I can book it out for them to practice. I can practice doing their live sound. I can practice doing their monitors. I can go in and try all these different techniques. Like, how often do you have access to a music venue to just go and practice your sound engineering? Normally, as a live engineer, you basically just get thrown in, you know. And you stood there with a band going, oh, okay, I think I know what I'm doing. Okay, right. You know, obviously not once you know what you're doing, but in the meantime, you know, I also would say to anyone who's looking to come to Spirit to study live audio as well, whether they're someone who's studying currently or that they're looking to study, the best thing you can do is go out and get shadowing. Right. And actually go out and get into live venues. There's nothing stopping you from getting live experience whilst you're studying as well. Like, making the most of every opportunity that comes your way, whether that's in Spirit or outside of Spirit as well. Well,
speaking of those kind of opportunities, is there anything that you've got going on that kind of fits that?
I don't stop. I'm constantly on the go. I've been shadowing as much as I can.
Great.
I've been working at some events as well. I've actually been at an event this weekend. I've been working for an audio company called MTS, and they very kindly brought me in on an event at the Bullring in Birmingham. And it was this fantastic women's empowerment event called Self-Love Sanctuary. We had this absolutely huge balloon display thing, and we had this full tech corner. And on the Saturday, I was shadowing a really experienced engineer. No, sorry, on the Friday, I was shadowing a very experienced engineer, and I had a full day of really intensely learning what I was doing. And then on the Saturday, they left me on my own with it. So I got to really do it myself. And the fact that I'm getting opportunities like that a few months into the first year of my degree is staggering to me. Like, it's so good that I've got those options there.
Yeah. Just going back to some of the stuff we were talking about, you know, what it's like to study here, but also within the city itself. Have you got like a particular venue, a favorite in the city that you love to go to?
I love so many of the venues in the city.
Yeah.
I really like all the really small, horrible basement venues. That's my favourite place to be. Like, if you're going to put me at a show, I want to be somewhere that is dark and sweaty and probably sounds terrible, actually, to be fair. You know, like those really ones where you get really, really intimate, you get down the front and you're having a riotous time. But my favourite venue is probably the Albert Hall.
Yeah.
I love the Albert Hall. But yeah, it's an old, 16th century Wesleyan church?
Something like that.
It's got these huge stained glass windows on either side. There's a huge pipe organ behind the stage, but you get in there and you get all these really vibrant modern acts playing in there. I actually moved to Manchester specifically because of the music scene. So I've moved around quite a bit. I grew up in Norfolk. I lived in London for quite a while. I lived in a couple of different countries and a couple of different cities. But a few years ago, I'd been traveling around. I'd been going to gigs. I'd worked as a tour manager and stuff, so I've been around a bit. And every single time I came to Manchester, I had one of the best gigs, you know? Like, every time I came through with a band and they played Manchester, they'd have an amazing time. The crowds are amazing. It's so diverse. As a city, it's got this really, really incredible, well-established music scene with some great venues. And sure, occasionally venues close, but new ones pop up in their place as well. But it's small enough and insular enough that you can turn up to a show and you're going to know a load of people in the room, you know? It's got... It feels like a big city, but it feels like a small village all at the same time. It's a real community. And I think there's also a link between the different kind of genre scenes. You get a lot of crossover in different places, you know? But yeah, a bit over 5 years ago, I'd realised that all these amazing gigs were happening in Manchester, and I went, you know what, I need to be there. Like, I moved up here specifically for the music scene, and I think that was a top choice as well. Yeah.
And so have you got anything lined up then that you're working on at the moment? Any projects that are coming up, maybe around the city?
I've always got various projects on, but I'm involved with a festival called Manchester Punk Festival, which is it's like my Christmas, you know. My entire year revolves around this festival in April. There's a collective that put it on. It's 3 promoters that are involved with it, and a few years ago they were kind enough to ask me to help out as well. I play a small part in it, but it's a really, really, really big part of my life. It takes place in April every year. We normally do it over the Easter weekend, and it's full days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. with a pre-show on the Thursday as well. I think this year we've got 130 bands or something like that. It might be more, I lose track. I vaguely know what's going on with it. It's but we run it across 7 or 8 different venues across the city. So it's not just about the music. When we say Manchester Punk Festival, underline the Manchester, right? We really make it part of the city, and we encourage people to get out, wander about, go to different bars, enjoy themselves. And yeah, for me, it's amazing because we get friends and, not just friends, but part of our kind of community. They come from around the country, but they come from other countries as well, I've got friends in South Africa who I met because they came to MPF.
That's so good.
It's amazing. And something I like about it is that when the festival first started out in 2015, some of the scenes that we had in terms of genre, they were quite disparate. People who were listening to like skate punk, they didn't hang out with people who were listening to like kind of indie punk. And then these guys all got together, started putting it all on one bill. And now everyone's into each other's bands, we've all it's like the scene's expanded and grown out of it. And we've just got this, I get so excited about the community around it, is what I was saying about, in terms of DIY music, it gives you this real empowering sense that you can do anything that you want to do. Like I say, you can go out, you can record your own music, you can release your own record. You don't need to wait for someone to give you permission to do any of those things. And you can go and put on your own festival if you want to. There's nothing stopping you. So why not?
That's cool. Well, maybe we'll wrap it up there, unless there's anything else you'd like to share.
No, that's great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being on. And I might have to get a ticket to Manchester Punk Festival.
Oh, maybe a big guest
list. Maybe a free
ticket.
There we go.
If you'd like to learn more about Spirit Studios or find any more information on the courses that we offer, then please visit us at our website at spiritstudios.ac.uk.